there's a lot of administrative stuff that really doesn't achieve much. It'd be nice if we didn't have to worry about that and just concentrate on teaching, I suppose. But that's probably the main thing. Like, we're there to teach kids, and stuff that gets in the way of that. It'd be nice if we didn't have to worry about it.
He spent 40 years shaping young minds in science and math classrooms. But today, Mr. George Connor, he has built systems that help students thrive, even when those motivations disappear. So if you are a parent, teacher, or mentor trying to unlock a struggling student's potential, this might be the most important conversation you listen to this week. Mr. George Connor, he is co-authored with Pat Mesiti in the book Stories of Strength on Amazon, and his website is studentstrengthnow.com.au. We're here to get the magic back in the education system, get the kids excited, motivated, learning, productive members of society, so much more. So, Mr. George Connor, glad to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Happy to have you. And so, what did I leave out of that introduction? What currently has you just so fired up, energized, excited?
Well, it's after 40 years in the classroom, I've decided to sort of step back, semi-retire. I'm doing casual stuff at the moment, so I still like the interaction with the kids. So I'm thinking that if I could set something up where I still get some interaction, but without actually having to go into a school to do work, that's the plan.
Well, great. And so, speaking of your expertise and what you have to offer, like, why educating kids, and just what has gotten you so focused on this?
It's a very satisfying career because you see kids, once they've left school, might be 5, 10 years down the track, and they're happy to catch up with you, and they're happy to tell you what they've been doing. And most of the time, the feedback you get from them is that they've had a really successful launch into after-school life.
Very good. So you are improving the future. You're causing that ripple effect, making the earth better than where you found it. And you give me flashbacks to, we've all had good and bad teachers, and I feel like it's probably like 30% good, and then like 50 or 60% neutral and forgettable. And then there are those few that just either maybe didn't want to be there or were teaching in the wrong place. But what do you think is important? Like, what makes a good teacher such as yourself?
It's communicating, being able to communicate with the kids, basically. If you're fire and brimstone and us and them type approach, it's not something you can keep going with for your entire career. You might have been able to do it 50 years ago, but it doesn't work nowadays. So just being able to get the job done, but still be able to communicate, work with, bring the most out of the kids that you can.
Communication skills, underrated and important. And if we can tackle this big problem that's educating the kids, maybe there's problem kids or they're unmotivated, how do we fix it? Well, you begin with that communication. And you've seen many things, I'm sure, over the decades, over the years. What do you have to share with us, maybe story-wise? Like, were there any moments that you think are important today?
Mainly getting blindsided by, like, one of our staff members. She's a science teacher, and she'd worked at the school. She was an ex-student, and she now works at the school and had done for about 5 years. And then one day, out of the blue, she came out and said that she became a science teacher because I had her for Year 9 science, and that inspired her. And yet, on the other end of the scale, I know there's probably at least 2 ex-students that are in jail for murder. So, you get all sorts, don't you?
So it can go either way, but that must make you feel good that because you were such an effective teacher, then you inspired someone else to do it. And did you maybe experience something similar when you were a kid? Like, did you always want to be a teacher, or is there some time in childhood or adolescence that woke you up?
No, I was always fascinated with aircraft, so I thought something in the aeronautical line might have been good. But back when I went through what was high school back then, I don't think there was any such thing as careers teachers, so I had no guidance as to where to go. I liked science, so I did biology at uni and worked on a nut farm, but as in almonds, and and then one of the managers said to me one day, "You can't do this all your life. You better go and get your teaching qualification and go teaching instead." So off I went.
Oh, great. So there's that whole aspect in school when you try different things out, right? There's always those classes that we all hate. Maybe we're not good at chemistry or math, but it's important to go out there and have those adventures, like at the almond farm, just to figure out like what clicks for you. And you mentioned a little bit in there that the career counselors didn't exist back when you were a kid. So is there anything you feel like mentioning about just maybe how the education system has evolved, or like what is in place now that maybe wasn't back during your time?
Well, it's certainly a lot different now. The number of support staff you have in classes is huge compared to what it was 40 years ago. But then the number of kids that need the support is also huge compared to 40 years ago for whatever reason. So I'm suspecting it's probably something to do with the environment. I don't think it's genetics. So anyhow, you just got to work with what you're supplied with. So it's certainly very handy to have that extra support in classrooms. Like they might be able to focus on one particular kid that might, like doesn't have the organisation or the focus to be able to sit down and do whatever task. So you've got an education support staff there to help that particular kid get on with what they're required to do. So that's probably the main difference.
So there's more organization in place, and there's these systems, programs in place, and I can only imagine as a teacher the personality clash there might be sometimes, right? There's other teachers, there's your superiors, there's the kids, there's the parents. Is there any advice that maybe you wish the parents like would know going in, just to better navigate this with the teacher and have their kid be developmented as best as possible?
I guess as long as parents know that there's support there that they can access if they want to. Some of the kids turn up at a secondary school and their notes from primary school indicate that they're going to have issues at a secondary setting. So they're already identified. It's the ones that sort of go under the radar that I like to focus on, because the others, they're sort of looked after by the specialists anyway. So, by getting some of these systems into place with organisation and use of class time and different strategies for, meeting deadlines and preparing for assessments and all that sort of thing, with just the run-of-the-mill type student, that's sort of what I'm aiming to target with this program.
Well, great. And I'm curious about some of what just you wish would improve, or what do you wish there would be different in schools today?
The curriculum is always chopping and changing a bit. So a lot of staff time is spent just rewriting curriculum that's already been done, but something might be swapped to a different year level. There's a lot of administrative stuff that really doesn't achieve much. It'd be nice if we didn't have to worry about that and just concentrate on teaching, I suppose. But that's probably the main thing. Like, we're there to teach kids, and stuff that gets in the way of that, it'd be nice if we didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, the bureaucracy and the red tape. And so when we want to help these kids succeed better? I know that you have some opinions, right? Such as that motivation is overrated. So, what do you think really helps kids succeed?
Um, I think personal organisation is a big part of it. A lot of kids, they get to the last, day before a test and then really realise that, well, perhaps they should have, prepared a bit better, or, in some cases even started preparing. So if you can actually get students working in the like planning further ahead, so these things that are important but not urgent, as long as they don't become important and urgent, because then they're not going to do a very good job with it. So and that being able to do that comes from home, which is where the parent side of it comes in. If they can have the support side of it from the parent angle, and that will then flow through into the day-to-day activities at the school.
Okay, and so as what you mentioned there about the time management and the organization, like it took me way too many years in school to catch on with that. That there were some people that just got really good grades, really good students, and they weren't necessarily super Einstein geniuses, right? They just got to things early, and they had discipline, and they maybe took things seriously. And I know like that also you're big on the basics of all this, right? Of it doesn't need to be like this, crazy elaborate thing. It's just like, hey, you have your tasks, and if you're stuck on a problem or skills, you get the help. But there's also this idea of breathing, hydration, and food that's so important to have that foundation. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Um, there's a big emphasis on hydration nowadays. There's drink fountains throughout the whole school. The We've got a room called the Flow Room, Flexible Learning Options Room. Kids that come to school that haven't had any breakfast can actually get some breakfast down there, have something to drink down there as well. Students encouraged to have water bottles in classrooms. That's all a part of keeping the brain working, because if it's not hydrated, it's not going to work very well.
Yeah, and they just try to power through, and then it affects them in all these other ways. And so you mentioned about how there's been good kids and there's been bad kids, right? There's the one that was inspired to teach, but there's also the ones that ended up in prison. So is there a particular kid that was maybe like real bad influence or real difficult to break through to?
Um, that murderer that I'm thinking of, he was an okay sort of kid, but I think when he went after school, he went and got mixed up with some motorcycle gang or something or other. So that's where he come unstuck. But there's plenty of kids, well, not plenty, but there's kids that like they muck around and carry on. The oh, they're the ones that you'd like to sort of work on, because they're the ones that it probably takes 6 months before they accept you for being a human being, I suppose. And then once you get on sort of, not so much on their level, but once you get through to them, then you can start working with them. So it's not something that happens overnight for sure.
Okay, so they need to meet you. They need to make that decision, and but it's not an excuse to not keep trying. And there's that idea of the guilt by association, right? If you're kind of in a poor area or you're around criminals, then you'll end up acting like them, thinking like them, and having maybe the same compromises, shortcuts. And we don't want that, right? You want kids to succeed. And you've been at this for many years, and students, teachers, we all have experienced burnout at some point. So, did that ever happen with you? Did you ever get to the point in your career where maybe you thought about quitting, giving up, or did you ever experience like a big moment of stress like that?
Um, Over 40 years, because it was all at one school too, which is very unusual nowadays. Like some of the people, the staff members that I used to socialise with, they sort of retired and moved on. So um, that was a bit unsettling for me, because I started to realise that, wouldn't be long in that, then I'd be in that situation. So it was a bit unsettling, like not so much having to mix, but getting to know more of the other staff, which was not a bad thing, but it was something that I sort of had to do halfway through. But I guess at that stage then I could have went to another school, but I was happy with the direction of the school and how it was run, so I was happy to stay there, and I just socialise with different staff members now. So
Really important to do that, right? Sometimes we say, well, oh, I just want to get to work and do what I, my tasks, but hey, getting friends, you never know when you need them or they need you, and it's important to develop those relationships both in school and out there in the real world. So we've been talking about all these different aspects of teaching and students and the school system, but I want to make sure that in these final moments of our conversation, we talk about what's important to you. So do you think there might be a missing question in our conversation? What do you think I should be asking you? I just don't know to ask you.
Not a better question, but I guess probably the main thing that I'd like to get through to some kids is that who you mix with is going to make a big difference. And sometimes your best friend might be your worst enemy and you don't realise it. That can be the one that sort of sends you in the wrong direction where you don't necessarily want to head. And it could be your best friend that's causing it. And that must be very daunting for some students to take on board, I think.
I agree. Yes, that it's important to choose your friends, and sometimes it happens, right? You have someone similar interests, you sit next to them in class or in the cafeteria, and next thing you know, that's the person that you're associated with, and they might lead you off that track. And it's so important just to have awareness about all these things that we've been discussing, right? That if you just drift through life or you drift through school and you end up in a weird random place versus having a strategy and reassessing. And it's really important to have this conversation and think about some of these things that we've been having this conversation with Mr. George Connor, veteran educator with over 40 years of experience in middle school teaching, mentoring, and school timetabling. And from science classrooms to curriculum design, he's seen what works and what holds students back. He helps students and families create clear, structured environments where success becomes natural and stress becomes manageable. His approach is built on systems, self-awareness, and some of these simple changes we have been discussing today that deliver lasting results. And if someone says, I like a lot of what George has to say, I want to find out more about him and his programs, the website, what he has going on, what are some next steps here?
What was it again?
What's the next step? Where should someone go after our podcast?
Yes, I've got a website still under construction. It's called studentstrengthnow.com.au. They can email me there. I've got an email address attached to that. That's the starting point. It's an ongoing sort of process, so it'll change over time. But that's the landing page to get started.
Well, great. So studentstrengthnow.com.au. And then when you go there...
Student Strength. Yep. Student Strength Now in one word. Yep.
In one word. And what would be the reason for someone to email you? What type of person or what type of problem would they have that would lead them to you?
I'm thinking that parents that have had some sort of negative feedback from the school, whether it's students not meeting deadlines, not passing tests, interactions that they've had at school that, bring them to the attention of the administration, sort of low-level type thing that is things that are going to get in the way of a student being able to be successful.
Okay, great. So an additional brain on the problem and get to that student's issue early. That way it doesn't affect them later in schooling and later in life. You get this figured out. That way they can be back on a good track towards academic excellence and making friends and achievement and everything else that goes with that. So that next step is studentstrengthnow.com.au. And then you can find that book, where Mr. George Connor is co-author with Pat Mesiti at storiesofstrengthbook.com. And before I let you go here, Mr. George, it's time for the scary part of the podcast where I try to stump you, I try to put you on the spot by asking about a fun or interesting quote or lesson that has served you. So what comes to mind as far as a fun or interesting quote or lesson?
With fun stuff, the thing I've always enjoyed over the years was school camps. So there's been some interesting times on school camps, I suppose. You get to see the other side of kids, and they get to see the other side of you because you're there 24/7. There's been a few camping type, week-long camps that have had some interesting anecdotes, I suppose. The snow camps where we didn't lose kids, but we had a whiteout one day, and it was a bit of a panic at one stage to make sure we had them all located because you couldn't tell the sky from the ground. That was an interesting experience.
Yeah. Well, great. So that's an important activity to embark on, right? If you have the opportunity as a teacher or a student, look into those summer camps. And like, you give me flashbacks, Mr. George, because it feels like those sort of camps, it's almost like a bonus year of your childhood, right? So much happens. I had Boy Scout camp, summer camp, and like all the activities that were packed in. And as you said, you have a lot of the similar other students plus teachers, and you see a quite different side of them, and it's so much fun and so enjoyable. But many things in life are also easy not to do, right? It's easy to think of excuses. Oh, I don't have the time, or I have to pack up my gear to go or sign up or pay the fee. Well, figure it out, because life is short and it's not guaranteed for anyone. You or I both could get hit by a giant truck tomorrow or later today. We never know, and it's important to make the best out of what we have in front of us and to help that future generation to succeed in their education as well. So we've been speaking with Mr. George Connor, who was a math and science teacher who worked with 12 to 16-year-olds in the classroom for 40 years. And his website is studentstrengthnow.com.au. If you are a parent who has a troubled kid or struggling and you just need some extra help, studentstrengthnow.com.au is the place to go. And thanks so much, Mr. George Connor, for having an enlightening conversation with me. Thank you very much for being here. I really enjoyed it.
All right, thank you.